Nice, neat and tidy bag.
Might be more manageable though. Oh,
Ooh.
that's crisp.
I like the way that pops.
Good morning, we're on day 12 of our build.
Something like that.
Something like that. And we've got a big day planned. We're putting in our first Webasto heater. So we've done a Propex before in our first van. Our last van we did an S-bar, and now we're trying the Webasto.
I'm a little nervous, honestly, to get started because this is always such a big project. Like we said, we've done the S-bar before, and this looks more or less the same, like shape and wiring and tubing and all that stuff. So I think the installation should be pretty simple. But it took us like 2 full days last time. Yeah, we'll see if we can...
The goal is one day.
Yeah, let's see if we can do it today.
So we're just gonna start by taking out all the parts and kind of like assembling it and seeing how it goes together, and then we'll try to put it all together in the van.
Sweet. Something we noticed is that it did not come with a manual, but I did find one online, so we're gonna be following that. It's just on my computer. And like I said, it looks very similar to the S-bar, so if any of you guys have done that before, you'll notice like the general shape and the connections at the bottom are honestly exactly the same. The pump looks exactly the same, so I think it's gonna be a familiar install.
It's gonna be a hard one.
It's still gonna be a tough one, yeah. All right, so the first thing you need to consider when you're starting this whole installation is where exactly you're gonna wanna put the heater. So in a lot of people's builds, they end up putting the heater in the passenger seat, just like somewhere around there. And that's what we did with our last Sprinter. It worked really well. But in this one, that's where the tire jack kit is kept. Plus there's a whole bunch of airbag sensors in the seat. To be honest, like I don't think it's gonna be as hidden as it would have been in a Sprinter. So I'm not really super stoked on that spot. So we've decided, just based on our layout of what we're gonna do in our van, we've got, you can kind of see we've got everything taped out here. This is initially where we had it taped out for, but upon looking underneath, there's a big bar that goes right across the middle there. So we're gonna have to move it back slightly. So in order to pinpoint the spot where we wanna put it, you need to make sure you're not drilling into anything important underneath. So I'm actually just gonna start from underneath the van and drill up in a spot where I know I've got lots of clearance. And then from there, we'll sort of rework exactly where it's gonna go on top here. Okay, change of plan. So it's not gonna go on this side, it's gonna go on this side now. And the reason is the exhaust pipe kind of runs like here and then all along this side underneath. And it's best if it's not by any really hot parts. So we wanna keep it away from the exhaust. So that's why we're gonna put it on this side of the van. And it looks much more open. So I'm happy with that.
Oh, how you doing?
Good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make my first pilot hole up from the bottom here, and then we'll kind of see where it lines up on the inside. Okay, so these are the new measurements. So that's the little pilot hole I drilled, and then from that hole that I drilled, I measured to the end of the bar that runs this way, underneath the van, and this way and this way. So this is essentially the area we have that's open space for us to drill holes for all these bits that are gonna stick through. So the next step for us is now going to be getting the Webasto heater as close to the actual metal floor of the van as possible, because we have quite a few layers going on here. We've got insulation, subfloor, and vinyl, and these little pegs that we're gonna need to stick through the floor aren't long enough to fit through all of that. So we're gonna take our multi-tool and we're just gonna etch out a little nest for our heater to sit in.
So we just got rained out, so we just set up our little rain tent. It's kind of cute. And we've got our new Milwaukee multi-tool out. So we just got this bad boy last night.
It's an M12, so it doesn't go with the rest of our stuff, but it's all I had, so.
Yeah. So we're just gonna use it to cut a little piece out of the floor here because it's supposed to be on flat metal. So we're gonna see how it goes.
Okay, so there's the little hole I cut out. Is right on that little lump. So ideally we'll be mounting it right here because you want it to be on a flat surface so it seals properly and is angled properly. But the only restriction is there is a bar that runs right here underneath the van, and I measured underneath and it's exactly 3 inches from this hole. So like looking down, so if that was our last hole, the bar should be just beside it. So I think there's enough room for us to screw whatever nut we need to screw on there. So I think we're just gonna go for it, and if it doesn't work, then we'll sort it out. First 4 holes drilled. For this one, we're gonna end up using a hole saw just because we don't have a drill bit that's big enough. So I'm just gonna use this little screwdriver head and line it up in the middle and then hit it with a hammer. It'll just make a really small indent there so that when we put the hole saw in, it'll stay right in the center and it's not gonna slide around anywhere. So
while James has been working away, putting the holes in the floor, I've just been making busy myself, just installed the rest of these lights. So I wired them up yesterday, but I just wanted to make sure they actually worked before I installed them in the ceiling, and looking pretty good. So there's gonna be our lights just on the counter space for when you're chopping veggies or whatever. It's gonna look sick.
Our next step is going to be adding this little gasket thing to the bottom. Some kits may also come with a metal mounting plate and like a foam gasket thing. We don't have that, so we're just gonna use this.
Oh, baby!
Got the fan?
Yeah.
Nice. Just found this in our online manual. It's got hole sizes for everything you should drill, so follow that. Alright, last thing before we slap it down is just decided to put both of the, well, there's a cap on this end and then the tube for the exhaust on this end. Just decided to put those on first because we're not sure how easy it'll be to get them on once we slide it in the holes there. So time to put her in though. It does say to have 2 inches of clearance on either side of the heater, but there's definitely plenty of room all around there. So plan that out for yours as well.
Cool, so we're just starting our first part of the wiring harness. I made this wiring diagram to kind of simplify things a bit. With all the wires, it can get a little confusing, so here's a picture just a little simplified, and everything is color coded. And we're just doing it inside the van because it's raining and it's just a little bit easier. So we've got these little pieces, the red and brown separate wire. So this end here is actually just going to slip into the fuel pump, and you can see that there's like a little notch, so it goes in like that. This is going to be mounted underneath, obviously. For these bits, we're actually just going to slide these silicone pieces on first. Make sure you do it first before you crimp, because it just makes it a lot easier to slide on when it's all in the insulated cover. I'm just slipping these on. Cool, and then I'm just going to crimp the ends. I think they're a 22 gauge. Then I've just brought the rubber piece kind of up to the bottom of the insulation, like so. We're just gonna push this into the wire, or push this into this little metal bit, like that. And then we're gonna crimp this around the copper wire. And then this blue part is just gonna make it nice and waterproof. We'll do that for both sides. And then these will slide into one of these black bits. And it'll just be a quick connect in case, I don't know, you ever need to access this for some reason.
So yeah, basically these little connections that Jenny just did will slide into one end of these. This will connect to this, like that. And then in the other end, it's another spot for these connections, but we're gonna put in the ones that came out of the tube that's in the bottom of this. So that's already hanging underneath the van right now. I thought you could put them in any of them, but I think the manual says put them in this one. It's got this little metal piece on top, the little release piece there. So you're gonna put these into this one. And there is an orientation. It looks like they can go upside down, but you can't rotate them 90 degrees. So if you just look inside here, you can kind of see the little paddles on these. So on this side and on this side, there's a little paddle that kind of flaps out. Those will click into the top and bottom. Might be a little difficult to see, but it's essentially gonna go in this way. And then it's a little tight because it's got this little weather sealing thing. So I'm actually gonna get them both started since I don't have a lot of slack. Start pushing them in. And then you should hear a click like that.
Hear the click?
And it's connected.
Nice.
And also to note, it is a red and, or sorry, a brown and a blue wire. It doesn't actually matter which side you put it in, so don't worry about that. And then this little piece is gonna connect to this one, you'll see there's a little black notch there, so just make sure you line that up with the black notch on this one. Click these together once you put in the ones underneath in through here, and then that'll connect this wire to the pump, and then that would be the electrical underneath the van done. We're probably not going to do many more connections underneath because it's really wet and I'm super over just like rolling around on the wet ground. So probably gonna do that tomorrow when it's a little drier. But we think we at least figured it out, so we're gonna be a little better at explaining things from here on out.
Nice. James is underneath the van setting up the fuel pump and stuff.
It's a nice sunny day and it's dry under here, so I'm a happy boy.
I'm just figuring out where our little, whatever this is, screen thing should go. And I've just decided I think I want it here, as you can see. Since I already have walls up to that point, I have to fish one side of it, and that's pretty hard. So what I'm doing is just about to tape the two like strings together, just trying to make it kind of like hard so I can shove it up the wall. Something I didn't quite love about this start timer or whatever is that it has like a flat piece and then the wire sticks underneath of it, so it's almost as if they just want you to like stick it on the wall. But I always like things if that can like stick it on the wall and then have the cord coming out the back, and that way it's really flush on the wall. So it might be kind of hard to finish this one.
I just finished these two lines where they're gonna go. So this is actually an air filter for the air intake, which is also why this was so short. So it actually is totally fine as it is. So it's got a little piece like this. So this pops out like that and it just slides into this guy here. Give you another angle. And then this thing, you just drill a hole for, and then this just pops in that way. So that's how that's secured. For the exhaust line, I vented it outside the van there, and I use another one of these clamps, which is a smaller version of this, and it's just metal. So it looks like this, it's metal, it's smaller. That's what's holding that piece there. And then I made sure to leave clearance on any metal pieces here, just so it's not gonna rub against it as best I could. But like I said, it is a really small piece of hose, so next I'm gonna go ahead and mount this pump. What you need to notice about this pump is, if I spin it around the right way, there is an arrow on it, on the bottom there. And so that arrow is indicating which way the gas is gonna flow through it. So it's gonna come from the fuel tank to here, and then out the pump, this end, and then that end is gonna lead to the heater. So this is our heater installed here, right? So I'm gonna mount this upside down so that the arrow is pointing this way. And I'm gonna have this little black piece on the bottom, which is the electrical connection, because that's also gonna go back over here. And I'm gonna mount it in its little casing thing like that. Ooh, don't drop it. This is rubberized also, which is supposed to help reduce noise, I think, and also probably just keep it nice and snug in place. All right, so there's the pump mounted there. I'll take these caps off once I actually put the fuel line on, but for now I'm just gonna leave it like that. So coming out of here, if you remember, we had these two wire ends, and when we were inside the van, we connected them to this section of the wiring harness. We've got two ends, so this one on the right is the one we did in the van, and this is the one that came already pre-done. So this one with a little green tip is gonna click into the fuel pump there, and that black part at the bottom. This one is going to click into this other piece. This will go in there, so I'm gonna attach those now. They're going in the small end that way, not the big square end that way. There we go. So I just pushed them both in until I heard them click, give it a tug, definitely not coming out. And now I've got my other end of my thing that I set up already. Click, good to go. And then this end, I'll connect to the fuel pump. There we go. Now I've got this bunch of wire. I'm gonna find a way to keep this all wrapped up, probably use some zip ties, and then, I don't know, put it up here or something. Trying to keep it all nice and high and tucked away so it's not gonna be touching anything or dragging or anything like that. My kit came with a little bag like this. It's got lots of pieces of short tubing and hose clamps like that. And then it also came with a really long coil of, it's like a hard plastic tubing. So that's gonna be the actual fuel line, and then these are the fuel line connectors. So the little nub that is coming out of the Webasto over here, which I'll show you now. So the little metal nub, I already put one of those pieces of tube on. You can see that's one of those things I was just holding. That goes on there, and then you'll put on a hose clamp. That is the hose clamp I just put on. And now from there, I'll take the black tubing, the long skinny plastic black tubing, stick it in here, and have another hose clamp right there to hold it in place. And then that black tubing is what I'm gonna run all the way over to here. I'll do another connection here, and another connection here, and then I'll do one more at the very end on the fuel tank. For anyone wondering how you're going to connect to the fuel tank, I will show you. There is an auxiliary fuel port in these vans. We've got a triple seat. If you have two, it's still in the same spot. It's just down here. So there's a little panel right here that you can lift up. You just twist a little knob there. And then that comes up like that. This thing is where the fuel ports are gonna be, so I'm gonna lift that up. Okay, so I got the first two screws off. There's one here and one there. But the third one you can see in the back there is right under this seat, so I can't get my drill or screwdriver under there. So I'm gonna try something to get it out. I really don't wanna have to take the seat off if I don't have to. All right, so I'm really proud of what I've just come up with. Jennie's laughing. So I got my socket wrench here, and then I got a size, I don't know, it says like 1/4 inch, one of these guys. Pop her on, and then from there, you can take your driver head or screwdriver head and put it in there. So I've got this, so now I can untighten the thing at an angle. I'm stoked. And so that is the hole. That's essentially like the fuel, top of the fuel tank. There's one spot still open, which is this one here. It's got a little green clip on it. All the others are full, so don't mess with those. But this one with the green clip, you're gonna take this clip off and then take this whole black cap off, and that's what you're gonna connect to. I just took the little cap off so you can see. So there's the green clip there. It's got two ends here. It was a little hard to show you while it was in, but you just push these in like that and then push them out like that. So it doesn't come fully off, but it pops out like that. And then once it's in that position, you just pull it right off. So that's what it looks like now. It's that little yellow bear cap. And so that is what you're gonna put that rubber piece of fuel tube on, put a hose clamp on it, and then your other plastic fuel line will go into that, and then you'll feed it under the van this way over to where you've got your S-bar mounted.
So James just poked the hose up from the bottom and I just grabbed it there.
Okay, so there's my two connections. Hey guys, I just changed one small thing on the Webasto. We actually went to turn it on the other day and it wasn't working. And it came up with like a no combustion error or something like that. So we figured it had to be one of the gas fittings, and the gas fitting that connected directly to our auxiliary fuel port actually had came off because the little piece of tubing we had didn't fit very well, so it must have just came off over time. So we got a new connector. That's the picture of what it looks like. So it's just another one of those quick connect things. It's the same end as our cap was that we ended up taking off. And it's a 5/16 to 5/16 connection. Anyways, so it's also an elbow, which means it's not sticking straight up and then bending. It means it essentially bends it right off the bat, which is just a lot easier on the tubing as well. So I don't think that's gonna come off now that we have the proper piece. Yeah, sweet. All right, so there is the front of the van. That is the black fuel tank. And so you can see this wire, which is the fuel tube I've run and secured in a couple places. Being careful to not have it rubbing against metal, and if I think it might rub against metal at any point ever, I'm wrapping it with a few layers of Gorilla Tape just to give it some extra padding. I'm back to the fuel pump here. So it's the same connection again. It's got that rubber tubing slid on, fuel clamp there, fuel clamp there. When you put this tube in, you want to slide it all the way in until you feel it hit that end. That's what they say in the manual. It's supposed to avoid air bubbles when you do that. So make sure you just push it in all the way. I'm done. All right, I'm gonna try to give a simple and brief recap. I know I've probably been a little repetitive, but I just want to be thorough so I don't miss anything. So, in here is where the Webasto heater is sitting, just above there. Screwed on by bolts. Got the exhaust pipe, which goes on the little metal spigot, and you want that to vent outside your van, which it is doing over there. This black one, there we go, is connected to the black plastic spigot. Mine was short because it came with this air filter that I screwed in there. And then This little black tube there is the gas. It's connected with hose clamps. When you put the plastic tube in, you want to shove it all the way to the end till you feel it hit the other metal piece. And the last thing over here is the wire. So the wire for the electrical component comes out of the spigot here. There's a little pocket you slide it up into. I've got it clamped over here. It's connected here, and then I taped it, clamped again. Runs under here over to our fuel pump, as does the fuel tubing. So those both come over here. The wire clips in and it ends there. The rest of the wire I have coiled up here. The fuel pump has a direction on it. It will have an arrow. You want the arrow pointing to your Webasto heater, not to your fuel tank, because it's indicating the direction of fuel flow. So fuel is flowing from your tank into your heater. So make sure it's oriented that way. It's also connected by these fuel ends on either end with hose clamps, and then it runs all the way down there. I tried to keep it in a relatively straight line all the way to the fuel tank. This big black plastic thing is the fuel tank. The best way that I discovered getting my fuel tube up there was to open it up at the top first in that hatch between the seats, and then just make sure light is shining through, because when I was directly under here, under the middle of it, I could see a light up there, which led into the cabin. So that was sort of my indicator of where I needed to feed it, and then I got Jenny to grab it on the other side and just pull it through.
All right, so we're getting ready to test it out. So I'm just gonna pop the top off this. You can get it, you can use a screwdriver, or I can just pop it off with my fingernails. Get the master hub.
Also, we never said before, but it's got a little hole here, so you can flip this around either way and have the wire coming out whichever way you desire.
Yesterday we did not have a successful evening. We plugged our harness in and the unit wasn't working. So we came back out today, we called tech support, and we figured out that we just had the wrong 4-pin connector clicked into our multi-control unit. So, ouch. This is our multi-control HD unit thingy. It's only compatible with the STC 2000 model, which we have. So anyway, what happened was we had this nice long line connected to it, which we thought would made sense because it would give lots of slack for wherever you wanted it in your vehicle. But it's actually this 4-pin one that says Telestar Diagnose. It's really weird, it doesn't make sense, the length doesn't make sense, but it works.
Yeah, so basically on our wiring harness we had this one branch off from the main one. So you can see down there there's 2 wires that branch off from there. This is the one we thought was for the controller. This one turns out is for nothing. Like the guy actually said he has no idea what it's for. So we're just gonna tie that up and put it away somewhere. And this is the other one that has the fuses which go to our battery, and then also branching off that is this 2 and 4-prong connector, and the 4-prong connector goes to our smart controller. And so now, once we did that, it worked. We're just testing it out now. We set the date and time and all that jazz, and we just set it to heat. And we know that since the tube is fairly long for the fuel line, it's gonna take a couple goes for it to fully prime the system and get the fuel all the way through. So
it turned on, so it's on, we can hear it working. So
you can probably hear it like blowing down there. But yeah, so it's probably gonna shut off at some point. We'll have to start it again. Basically it just takes a while for all that fuel to get through, and then once it's through it'll start actually heating. I am in the underneath. This is the pump, you can hear it clicking there. So that just means the electrical is working. That's something you'll probably hear from the inside. Once everything's primed, it's not going to be clicking constantly like this, because it'll just have to do it a couple times to get the flow started. But since it's trying to draw the fuel, it's just going to keep clicking. And we are on our second start.
Oh,
yeah, that's
here we go.
You can hear it ignite that time.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like a rocket about to take off. Oh yeah, that's hot. Alright, well thanks for watching our video. Overall, we think we're probably going to really like the Webasto. It was a little bit harder to install than our Aspire just because it didn't come with any manual, and the one that we did find online just wasn't very clear. But now that we've got it figured out, it feels really hot, nice dry air. It's got the same exhaust system and everything. So overall,
pretty satisfied.
Probably a good choice, yeah.
It took 3 starts for it to start actually burning fuel. And so now it's just gonna continuously go until we shut it off.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, put it in the comments and we'll try to help you as best as we can. Well, good luck with your projects, and yeah, let us know if you have any questions or comments, and yeah, have a good one.
See you in the next video.